So, you've been asked to lead prayers at church, but you're not sure where to start? Well, a few months ago I created a video talking you through how you can write prayers for leading prayers at church, and I'll link that down below in the description. But today we're going to be talking about what you need to know on the day. The things that you need to do, the things that you need to know, the things that you need to think about just before and whilst you're praying and leading prayers. And I've split this into two categories. So we've got the morning of, whether this is just before you hit print on your prayers or just before you leave the house, or kind of you've got a bit of time so you can still maybe make a few tweaks to your prayers, but not long enough to completely rewrite them. And then category 2 is things to think about and things to do whilst you're actually up there leading prayers. So once you're in the middle of it. So let's start with the morning of. The first thing you need to think about is how are you engaging the congregation? So when we're leading intercessions, leading prayers, we're praying on behalf of the congregation. We're kind of praying for them. But leading prayers in church is also a great opportunity to bring them with you and encourage them to pray. Involve them, get them praying too, and demonstrate what prayer can look like, particularly if you have new Christians or people who are still exploring faith. And there are lots of simple ways of doing this. For example, you can include a kind of call and response in your prayers. So every time you say, "Merciful Father," they say, "Hear my prayer." For example, you might want to check your church's service sheets, order of service, or what they usually do to see if this is a normal thing in your church. Maybe there's something that everyone already knows as a call and response, and you can just use that. Or you can come up with your own one. Another idea would be to use actions or sign language, so BSL if you're in the UK, or ASL if you're in America, or whatever sign language for your country. And you can use those actions or those signs, give people something to do with the hands or something to help them focus. Or you could perhaps use props or images on screen, again, just to give people something to focus on whilst they're praying and help to keep them engaged in the prayers. The second thing that you need to think about is, have you checked the news? You want to do this kind of as close to the service as possible, definitely the morning of. And just check that nothing big has happened in the world that you would need to make sure you're praying about. This could be a big world event, a natural disaster. It could be a big political event somewhere going on in the world. It could be an act of terrorism, for example, that you really want to make sure that you're including in your prayers and showing that you as a church are thinking about that and praying about that and helping the people in your congregation to pray about that thing too. Or it could be something much more local, something that's going on in your local community, in your neighbourhood, or in your congregation that you want to make sure that you're aware about, because it's something that your congregation will really care about and really want to be praying for. And you might need to check in with your vicar or your priest just to make sure there's nothing that you're not aware of. And the next thing that you want to think about before you hit print on your prayers is, are these too long or are these too complicated? Think about your congregation. Think about the different kinds of people who will be in the service while you're leading prayers. Think about children. Think about those who are hard of hearing. Think about those who might struggle to pay attention for a longer period of time in a very quiet environment. And a rough guide that I use is 100 words takes roughly 1 minute to say. So think about how long prayers are usually in your church, and maybe you can use that as a guide for how long your prayers need to be. But also think about the words and the language that you're using. Are you using overly complicated language, really long words that not everyone might understand? Because if people can't understand what you're saying, they're going to feel excluded from those prayers, like they don't know what's going on. And it can be quite simple to just make a few adjustments, maybe remove a little bit of your prayers or change out a few words if you need to. But just make sure that it's friendly and accessible for everyone in your congregation so that they can all be praying. And then it comes to the service itself. What do you need to do now? Well, the first thing that I think you should remember is to pray before you pray. So whether that's the beginning of the service or shortly before you're going to be going up to pray, just pray for yourself and pray for your prayers. Pray that you'll be able to be confident and not anxious. Pray that your prayers will bless the congregation, that they will help people and that they will help show people how to pray and maybe inspire people to pray for themselves. The second thing that you should do is be ready. It's really helpful if you know where in the service your prayers are going to come, so you can be ready. You aren't suddenly shocked by whoever's leading the service suddenly saying, "Oh, so-and-so is going to be coming and leading our prayers now," and you have to faff around and grab your piece of paper with your prayers on and get downstairs and up to the front of church. You don't want to be faffing around with any of that. You want to be ready. You want to know when your prayers are coming up and make your way towards the front of church in plenty of time to be ready to do that. This will help the service run smoothly, but also help you to feel more confident going into it, make you feel like you know what you're doing and won't put you in a state of panic at the very beginning of your prayers. Our next tip is to speak more slowly than you think you should. And this is a kind of similar technique to what I was taught when I was learning the clarinet when I was growing up. And I was taught that if I was doing the dynamics, getting louder or quieter, I should kind of do them so they almost sound silly to me. And if I get to the point where they're starting to sound silly for me, then they'll be sounding good to whoever's listening. And I think that same thing really applies to when you're speaking, and any kind of public speaking, but especially with leading prayers. I think if you speak slowly enough and leave pauses that you start to think this is a bit too long, then that's probably about right for the people that are listening. If you speak too fast, it can be really hard for people to understand what you're saying, especially if you have people in your congregation who maybe struggle with their hearing. And that was feedback that I definitely got quite a lot when I first started speaking in church, whether that was leading prayers or preaching. People often told me that I just needed to slow down because they were struggling to kind of keep up with what I was saying and hear what I was saying. And especially if you're nervous, it can be really easy to speed up and speed up and speed up and speak way too quickly. And another thing to think about is making sure that you speak clearly and into the microphone if your church has one for leading prayers. I'm sure you've probably seen when someone's given a microphone and they start with it up here and then it slowly drifts away and away and away from their face until you can hear absolutely nothing from them. You want to know where your microphone is in your church and make sure it's positioned nice and close to your mouth so that people can easily understand you and easily hear you. And again, this is particularly important if you've got kind of like a hearing loop system in your church, making sure that people who need help to hear can get that help and can hear what you're saying. You don't want to be speaking so loudly that you're shouting into the microphone, but you do want to be clear about your saying, pronouncing all of the words and making sure that people can understand you. But those are just a few tips and things to think about before you lead prayers at church. We do pray that this experience of leading prayers will really bless you and bless your congregation too. If you have any more questions about leading prayers in church, do let us know down in the comments and we'd love to answer those. Or if you have any top tips of your own, again, do leave those down in the comments and we'd love to hear your thoughts as well. But we hope you found this video helpful and encouraging. If you did, please do give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to see more videos from me and Arnold. And if you're looking for some fun and unusual ways of leading prayers at church, from praying the 10 Commandments to going on a bear hunt, do check out this playlist which is full of fun ideas. And we will see you very soon for a new video. Bye!